Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Objective and happy Thanksgiving. We are expecting Mark Pellegrino to arrive at any time, but if he doesn't arrive, at least we can be, I guess, thankful that he's hopefully doing something way cooler with his time. Leave a like, please, and super chat your questions, support. Rather than questions, why don't you super chat? What are you thankful or what are you not so happy about that you would like to change? Now, there's a lot to be thankful for. Just for example, I'm thankful for abundance. You ever stop and think about just kind of like what it took to go from a state of nature, so to speak, naked and cold in the wilderness, in the cave, in the jungle, wherever it was that man was hanging out? Just the utter, I don't even know if misery is the right word. Like, did they even have that sophisticated of an emotional vocabulary to be miserable? Was life just was it Rousseau who called it like brutish, miserable, and short? Not miserable, nasty, dangerous, and short, whatever it was. Somebody's gonna fill us in, I'm sure. But yeah, Hobbes it was. Thank you, Wyatt. And he says people were much poorer 50 years ago. Oh yeah, and you're jumping way ahead here. We're jumping way ahead. I mean, I'm talking way back when man was, when human beings were living like animals, more or less. Life was not worth living, really. I think people were basically functioning out of habit. And what is the myth that we hear today? And I guess here's the sort of the thing that I'm not happy about. The prevailing quasi-mystical perspective that, oh, life was better before language, before concepts, before greed, before trade, before the exploitation of nature, before man tried playing God, back when people just lived one with nature. Life was better and we communicated better. We didn't need words. God help me if I'm ever in that blissful state. But that's the prevailing myth of Adam and Eve, and if interviewing Jason Rines on this show has taught me one thing, it's that myths often have they are reincarnations of earlier myths often. What's the word for your sort of your previous life? Like if you are a reincarnation, what do you call your previous, the thing that was your previous life? Every myth, it seems, or many of them have a previous life. So you look at the myth of Prometheus in Greece, it had earlier versions. And if you trace it back far enough, some would say, if I recall, it like basically overlaps with the myth, the God of the Jews, the God of the Hebrews, the God of the Bible. These are often basically just certain myths that are being repeated and altered. And so the myth, my point here being the myth of Adam and Eve, it's got equivalents in other cultures and probably dates back farther back than we can trace, farther back than we have records for. So probably, if I'm going to guess, as soon as technology was first developed, as soon as agriculture, as soon as the purposeful starting of a fire, as soon as certain types of primitive medicine, as soon as things were purposefully developed and invented, that's probably around when the myths began to be told about how much better life was before this curse. You ever see the movie The Gods Must Be Crazy? It's very clever. Some Westerner, some modern man is flying his private jet, flying a jet over some part of Africa. He drinks a glass Coke bottle and throws the empty bottle out of the window, and it lands among Bushmen. And they can't believe, what is this bottle? Like, they find it and they see, oh, you can do it has all these different uses. You can blow into it and it makes kind of a whistling sound. You can use it to, like, I don't know, whatever it is you can use a bottle for. They figure it out, a bunch of stuff. But then what? They start fighting over it. Oh, there it is. The greed of your possessions. Ugh. Those Bushmen were so much happier, right? So much happier before this cursed glass bottle by the evil corporation fell from the heavens. Why did the gods curse us with this bottle? The Bushmen asked. Not that they knew the word bottle. We will give it back to them. And one of the main Bushmen, he goes off on a journey to walk to the edge of the earth and throw the bottle back to the gods. Now, what does that movie miss? What does The Gods Must Be Crazy miss? First of all, there's no conflict among rational men. So if you develop a bottle, I can buy it from you. If you produce it, I can buy it from you. And then, yes, it is mine. It's my possession. But you can get one too. He can get one. She can get one. Everyone can have their own bottle. You know, the producer, the manufacturer is happy to develop as many bottles as people need. So there's the division of labor. You can produce Coca-Cola bottles. You know, I could be a doctor. They can be, I don't know, entertainers. That guy over there can be a lawyer. Somebody can be a police officer and, you know, make sure that you're keeping your paws off of my bottle. But this idea that, like, oh, possession and technology is the beginning of misery on earth. It is a myth and it needs to be dispelled. So that's what I'm not happy about. That's what I'm not thankful for. Now we just spent, I don't know, the first 7 minutes of the show, I think, with a few seconds on the good, abundance, and like 6.5 minutes on what's bad. But contained within my complaining is the celebration of the good. So abundance. So think about it, what it took to get from the state of Bushman to where we are today and all of the periods in between. You know, just 50 years ago, life was much less desirable than it is today, technologically, culturally. I think, as much as, you know, you can say, well, there was some ways in which the culture was better 50 years ago. Well, not in every way. I'll answer you, not in every way. And we still have access to a lot of the stuff that you might say was better 50 years ago. High art, we still have it. You have access to it. You might not like the art that is more popular, but you do have the choice. I don't know if you think there's like decadence and nihilism in the culture today. There's also a whole lot of good happening in the culture. There's a lot of ambition, a lot of opportunities if you are ambitious. There's a lot of scientific development. I mean, Silicon Valley, I think, being the most glaring, obvious example of this. So what it took to get us here is reason and individual rights. So at a political level, individual rights being recognized, and at a personal level, being rational. All of these things are the consequence of philosophy. They come from philosophy. So as technology raises our standard of living from that of a miserable, naked brute, living from association to association and dealing with other people by force, a new set of problems arose that philosophy addresses. And without philosophy, without answers to life's deepest questions, or most fundamental questions, I'll say, life with technology and in some semblance of a civilization can be quite daunting psychologically. As your sort of physical sustenance is being met increasingly, you're now psychologically in need of a sort of spiritual component, a sort of conceptual technology, if you like. And that's where philosophy comes in. Philosophy hailing back from ancient Greece. Now, while the Greek myths have earlier incarnations, I guess the word is just incarnations that I was fishing for either. If you are the reincarnation, the earlier one was just an incarnation. Anyway, while their myths were probably often sort of reincarnated from previous cultures, philosophy was original. Philosophy was unique to the Greeks, as far as I know, and as far as anybody knows. I think we can be certain that they started it because we have records. We have as clear records as history offers. And that's when the work just begins. That's when the work began. And it took a long time for philosophy to finally sort of come into focus in a way that is proper for life in a modern setting. As technology developed, and there were some very long breaks in the development of technology, again, because I think philosophy is the reason for that. So bad philosophy hampered our progress and made us sort of return to the state of nature to a large degree. And as good philosophy began to permeate the culture, we start moving towards progress, and the Industrial Revolution is then like an enormous explosion of progress. Philosophically, we were wanting as people. We needed to really, really get it right. And it is my opinion that Ayn Rand's philosophy objectivism gives us the tools we need to live. It gives us both the tools to defend and protect and preserve this way of life that we're enjoying, but also psychologically to live in this world and to live in this state, you know, to not go crazy, to not be neurotic, to pursue the good, to pursue happiness. Rand's philosophy is it. And there may be more. There may be another philosopher or a school of philosophy that comes along that gets us even farther and raises our ability to think clearly and to proceed with confidence, even more so. But I'd say we've got a heck of a lot going for us now that Rand wrote and spoke about what she did. So if you haven't read Rand's work, I would recommend it, to say the least. So I'm thankful for philosophy, thankful for Ayn Rand and her work, thankful for abundance. I'm not happy about the death of Jason David Frank, who played Tommy on the original Power Rangers. Now, if you see behind me, that right there, you can't. It's got a big glare from the overcast light outside, but you can basically sort of make out. It's a very, very high resolution, high quality photograph of the Power Rangers in the command center. Next to that, you can see a little bit more clearly. It's Jason, not Jason David Frank, but it's Jason, as his name was in the show, the Red Ranger from the original show, facing Goldar, you know, in that foggy room where he was about to fight him. He didn't have his power. He didn't have the ability to morph. And, you know, that picture right there, it's when you need courage most. It's when you're facing evil, when you're in a dangerous situation, when you're, like I said, when you need courage most. And it's a very, very inspiring to me. Now, obviously, people laugh, or they might laugh, they might roll their eyes. Oh, why are you so preoccupied with the childhood, a children's show? Well, first of all, for a lot of us, these were the only heroes we had. You know, these were the only heroes we had in a world full of pragmatists, in a world full of nihilists, in a world full of religionists. And those three are not mutually exclusive, you know. Growing up in Israel as a kid, I would say like the secular side of the culture was, you know, very pragmatist and probably to a degree nihilistic. The religious, and I'll start with the Muslim presence in Israel. I would say the religious is largely nihilistic, so largely at war with life on Earth, largely inclined to self-detonate on a bus, which would happen very often. And then, you know, there's the Jewish religious elements of the culture, which were very, I think, sort of to a degree nihilistic in the way that all religion is sort of has a nihilistic element that's sort of at war with what life could be and should be, like a good life, and sort of rejects a lot of the good things about life. Also contained a lot of pragmatism, a lot of don't be too principled when dealing with the problems around you. And, you know, don't think long term. Don't be too principled. Like, don't follow any good philosophy. And so you just, you know, I think the image that sort of defined my childhood as a kid in Israel was watching the Prime Minister of Israel shaking hands with Yasser Arafat, who, you know, he had previously sort of given birth to the airplane hijacking sport. He was like, I think, the first to do it. He kind of taught his friends how to hijack a plane effectively. It became a very common thing, I think, in the 1970s. Earlier in the 1950s or 60s, Yasser Arafat had held a bunch of kindergarten kids hostage in Israel to have his demands met. I mean, he's just an absolutely horrible person. He represents the Palestinian or the Arabic rebellion against the presence of Israel. I shouldn't even call it a rebellion, really. It's just a declaration of war on what Israel is, not for Israel's crimes, which are some, but declaring war against Israel for what is good about Israel, which are its many virtues, such as the degree to which it is a scientific, basically rational, basically free, modern country in which individuals can pursue the good life, including Arabic people. So yeah, watching the Prime Minister of Israel shaking hands in a public display, like shaking the bloody hand of Yasser Arafat, and Bill Clinton standing behind them. That to me is like, there's no Jewish religious presence in that picture. I'm sure there was a handful of people with yarmulkes, like a handful of rabbis or someone nearby, some political scumbag, I'm sure. But those three men standing in that scene, none of them the religious Jewish elements of the culture were not represented. But you get my point. Pragmatism on the Israeli side, nihilism and religious brutality on the Palestinian side, and pragmatism on steroids embodied in Bill Clinton standing behind them. So where are the heroes? Where are the heroes to look up to? Where? Well, I didn't know it at the time, but, a then deceased author, Ayn Rand, I think was telling us what's possible. And look, other heroic figures have existed and were living and do live unrelated to Ayn Rand and objectivism. But definitely in my sort of quest for heroism, I think Rand was sort of sowing the seeds before I was even born. And while I was growing up, her influence was somewhat present in all of the West, and it was growing. And, the objectivist presence in the culture definitely was growing. So I'm thankful for the objectivist sort of scene, people who care about Rand's philosophy and study it intently and teach it. There was a time in the early days of the internet when I would look up Ayn Rand on YouTube, let's say in 2007 or whenever, look up Ayn Rand or objectivism, and you would basically just see the Phil Donahue interviews, a video of somebody burning Atlas Shrugged. That was like one of the top results. And, Yaron Brook holding his iPhone 1 or whatever it was, giving his speech. And, it was a hell of a lot better than nothing. I mean, I could do without the book burning video, but it was very rich and great to have the results they were. But obviously today, there's just so much content. They're basically much of the backlog of objectivist lectures and speeches and debates have been uploaded to YouTube. The Ayn Rand Institute is posting new, like a podcast basically every week. I mean, there's just so much happening. Yaron Brook is, doing a podcast several times a week. He's increasing that now, doing morning news roundups as well. There's just a lot of content from an objectivist perspective that is, easy to take for granted. But imagine if we didn't have these things. It's like most of us, we don't have the acumen, we don't have the training to understand what's happening in the culture. We don't necessarily have the ability to hear someone like Candace Owens and immediately sort of identify what game she's playing. So it is. I am very thankful to have that. But yes, I am sad about the death of Jason David Frank. He took his own life at age 49 over the weekend, I think it was. Maybe it was Friday. So, rest in peace. Suicide and suicidal tendencies are very tragic. Ask for help, I would say. If you're struggling, ask for help. There are a lot of people who have experience helping somebody like you. There is happiness to be attained. And you're already alive. You're already here. Let's make the most of it. You have something positive that you want. So, that was a hero. That was the image of a heroic figure that meant, inspired me as a kid. And, like many people my age, I was very sad to hear the news. Nick Bruno, thank you for the $19.99 in the super chat. He says he's thankful for me. Keep up the good work. Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. Anyone, support this network. This network brings a heck of a lot of content, and we'd like to see this network grow. So please hit the join button to be a member and super chat and leave a super thanks. All right. So I'm not happy about the death of Jason David Frank. What else am I not happy about? I'm not happy about Candace Owens. I'm not happy about Kanye West. Let me take a sip of my cappuccino for a minute. And I just want to brag for a moment. I can froth oat milk and almond milk better than some people can froth regular milk. I'm so talented at that. So you never know who you're talking to. You never know what kind of talents the people have that you're watching. Mark Moses became a subscriber because of the way that I say press the join button. I say button like he does, suppressing the O and a little bit nasally. Yeah. So Kanye West, listen, I understand there's a variety of opinions that are acceptable in polite society. As people who want Ayn Rand's philosophy to spread and to grow and to basically become the defining philosophy of the world, we are basically saying something very unpopular and very outside the Overton window of what's considered normal and acceptable. We're saying altruism is evil and selfishness is good. Fans of Ayn Rand or students of Ayn Rand, of all people, should appreciate the fact that different people are going to have different opinions and we need to hear them out. I'll also go a step further and say I definitely have a lot of sympathy for people growing up in today's world or in the last any amount of time who did not have a good education, who did not have what I mean is like a good philosophy. I should say a good philosophy taught to them, but like a good philosophy informing their education, a good philosophy impacting their education. And in a certain respect, we're all sort of orphans growing up in the modern world, with a handful of small exceptions. Obviously, the children of like objectivists or people impacted by objectivism. But even those people growing up, they're impacted by a culture that sends them all types of messages, from media to people they meet to education they get beyond what their parents provide them. So I get it. That being said, it's sad. It's sad to see the route that Kanye West has gone. It was a long time coming, because the more people are talking, the more people have access to social media and to technology that enables them at all hours of the day to speak to the whole world, you're going to hear voiced a point of view that has long been present in the culture. And in Kanye West's case, it's like this view that capitalism is just a system of one person screwing over another. And then the people most successful in the capitalist system as a group are clearly the Ashkenazi Jews, who are seen represented at the top of every industry. And so then who do we blame? But then Kanye goes on, who are we not allowed to criticize? Of course, the Jews. You get in a lot of trouble. So then his cancellation, he sees as proof of everything he had said. He claims to be validated, as if, insulting, I don't know, gypsies, or I don't know, name a group. Like if you say that you hate Latinos and you lose your job for that, does that mean Latinos are orchestrating everything, that they control everything? No, it just means that common, decent people are not interested in that perspective. They're not interested in associating with that point of view. They don't want to be associated with explicit, unironic racism and bigotry. So good luck explaining that to Kanye. But, he's taken a very negative turn in his life, and he's moved closer and closer to the alt-right, this creepy, freaky sort of bastardization, should I say, or this morphing, this metamorphosis of conservatism, or call it paleo-conservatism. Like it's whatever it is, it's like conservatism, American conservatism minus any constitutional like minus appreciation for the Constitution, minus appreciation for the Enlightenment, minus appreciation for individualism. And that, of course, rejects capitalism and sees it basically embraces this Garden of Eden mythology that says life was better before modernity. Life was better when you had fewer options. Life was better when you basically were bound to your family and to your station in life that you were born into. So a few days ago, I saw, well, I should say a month or two ago, when Kanye West first started talking about he's going to go get DEFCON 3 on the Jews, I thought it's a matter of time before Kanye is denying the Holocaust, because, I mean, he's basically breathing the same air as Holocaust deniers at this point. Now, he has not said that yet, or he hasn't said that, I should say. But, then a few days ago, I see he has announced he's running for president in 2024, and his running mate is Milo Yiannopoulos. Now, Milo can't even be VP, I'm guessing, because I would think to be vice president, you need to be eligible to be president, because if the president dies or becomes unavailable, the VP takes his place or her place. So I don't think a VP can be an immigrant like Milo is. So that's not the most absurd thing, but it's one of the absurd things about him and about Kanye West's announcement. And I'm thinking to myself, when I saw this announcement, like, yeah, Kanye's basically like, he's going to be embraced by the alt-right. He's going to feel at home with them. He's going to be one of them. And yeah, just a day or two after that announcement, I saw a video that went viral, was passed around Twitter and everywhere else, of Kanye West walking through an airport with Nick Fuentes, who is sort of like just the nastiest of alt-right, sort of sneering anti-individualists, authoritarians, just openly rejecting of just everything that makes life good, which is individualism, reason, capitalism, everything good. He openly rejects, and he's gross about it. Like, he's just so absolutely pathetic and gross, Fuentes is. Now, anytime you bring up the alt-right, you're going to see somebody say, well, white people, why can't white people do this? Everyone else is doing it. They say, oh, every other group has their own galvanization. They have their own culture that they celebrate. Why can't white people do that? And I will say, show me where somebody's saying what you just said, and where the second paragraph is not then blaming a group of people, namely the ones with no foreskin. Show me where that's happening. Show me where white people just want to celebrate their own culture and they're not calling into question the death toll, of the Third Reich's purging of Poland and France. Like, what? Like, show me where there's this benevolent quest for, quote, white culture that's not tied to Holocaust denial and blaming of the Jews and wanting to basically return to segregation or to deport various people or to kill various people. Certainly they apologize for / deny atrocities in history. Someone like Nick Fuentes, he's openly said that, like, the Jews being kicked out of as many countries as the Jews were kicked out of is, it's obviously that the Jews are doing something wrong. This sort of this thing that a lot of anti-Semites say is they say, oh, the Jew cries out in pain as he cracks his whip. That's something that, like, anti-Semites say. I think what you do see is the people who blame, who like the more Jews have been persecuted through history, the more the anti-Semites see that as evidence of the Jews being guilty, right? If the Jews were kicked out of England, that means the Jews were doing something wrong in England. It can't possibly be that the mystical anti-finance haters of life wanted to eviscerate this group of people. I mean, the pogroms against the Jews in Eastern Europe, where debts were wiped out. It can't possibly be that the people committing these pogroms were men without honor, right? It has to be that the Jews were guilty of something. So, with regards to, quote, white culture and why can't white people play the same game as everyone else? Because the fact is that white culture without the Enlightenment is pretty shitty. All right. Without the Enlightenment, without the Renaissance, without the permeation of Greek influence, of Aristotelian influence, without the movement towards individualism, what does that really leave you with? A dark age that spanned for 1,000 years, misery and famine, persecution. So is that what, quote, white people need to embrace? What white people and everyone else needs to do is look back at history and be proud, so to speak, or be admiring of the accomplishments of various individuals from various cultures, from various backgrounds, from various races, from various ethnicities, in various countries and in various regions throughout the world, throughout history. Take the good and reject the bad, and promote individualism. And that's what I'd like to see everybody do, whether you're Black, Jewish, white, Asian, whatever you are, whoever you are. Individualism is the way. And luckily, the founders of America realized this to a much larger degree than anyone else in the world up until that point. And they developed this country that has been resilient in the face of attempts to dismantle it and to eat it up from within, as well as from without. Luckily, another thing that early Americans realized was that socialism does not work. It's been said that the Pilgrims, or whoever it was that sort of invented the holiday of Thanksgiving, they were celebrating abundance. And they realized when they try to collectivize their farms, when they try to centrally plan agriculture, it falls apart and they're all miserable. But when they allow free trade, when they deal with each other by persuasion, by trade, when they have specialization, this guy grows corn, that guy raises the chickens, that guy, you get the point. And they trade with one another and with farms beyond where they are used to traveling. And they travel to trade by creating a better and better wagon that the horse can drag. You get, technology, trade, that creates abundance. And that's what Thanksgiving to me is all about. So despite the sort of religious connotations of Thanksgiving, it's like, oh, they're thanking God. I'm not going to thank God for this food. It is, but it isn't. You know what I'm saying? And you see a lot of this in the history of the West. You see the name God, but they're really kind of saying reality. They're saying existence. They're saying a finite sort of existence that you have to deal with on its terms. Thank you, Kathleen, for the £2. Wishing me a happy Thanksgiving. Nice to be wished Thanksgiving in a foreign currency, because we're all Americans now. That's what I say. If you're an Ayn Rand student, if you appreciate objectivism, if you're an individualist, if you love capitalism, if you want a good life for yourself, then to me, that's what makes you American. And that's how I see all of you, to the point where I even forget that you're not living in America. And that's where that's my sort of benevolent interpretation of the American pomposity, pompousness. How Americans, we travel all over the world and we expect everyone to speak our language. Like, we forget that like other countries have elections. Other countries have problems and situations. Doesn't even occur to us. And I know there's definitely a negative way to interpret that. But it's Thanksgiving. Let's just say it's the American benevolence. It's the American view that, hey, everyone could be an American. And that to me is what America is at its best, a welcoming country. A country that says, if you want a good life for yourself, come on in. Sadly, that's not where we're at today. So there's the sort of negative complaint. What I'm not thankful for is this anti-immigrant sentiment that's definitely reared its ugly head. It's been around for a while, but it's really, really increased lately. It's absolutely pathetic, and it's sad, and it prevents so many good people from pursuing the life that they want. It should be very easy for a law-abiding, good person to move to America or to move anywhere. Definitely, I would like to see immigrants move to America freely. And people say, oh, yeah, but they go on welfare. I'm not sure that's even true. I'm not sure they're able to go on welfare. But like this narrative that Republicans like Mark Levin who's supposed to be the good guy, right? The anti-Trumper. He's been pushing this for decades. It's all like, they come here, they go on welfare, they vote Democrat. Are you sure they're voting Democrat? Or are you sowing the seeds of what would become a January 6th belligerent conspiracy quackpot orgy, Mr. Levin? Okay, I'll leave him alone now for a moment and return to you. There's ways to deal with welfare. You know, we shouldn't have a welfare system, but if we're going to have entitlements, we then do a better job not giving them to immigrants, right? Not giving them to someone who's not a citizen. And if they're committing crimes, of course, that's the job of the government to police and to deport or whatever. But by and large, people who come to America, they come to America for opportunities and they leave when there's not an opportunity. I think in recent years, I've heard it said, so, you know, take it with a grain of salt, like there was like a net negative immigration in America. Like more people left America at a certain point during the Trump era. I don't remember exactly when, but if that's true, I know people say, oh, good, because Trump was, you know, sending them what? Trump made America lamer. And, you know, anyway, we got like Silicon Valley and all these industries in America that are hungry for talent. And so many good, smart, capable people want to come to America, start a business. And I know it's not their job to provide us with jobs and with economic growth, right? We don't advocate altruism for anyone, including immigrants. I want them to come here selfishly. But incidentally, they do raise our standard of living. If they come here, they start their business here, they pay their taxes here, which I wish were voluntary, but nonetheless, they pay their taxes here. They employ people here. They, you know, they spend money here. And they need to deal with immigration crap all the time. They need to hide, or they need to, you know, I don't know, deal with bureaucracy and endlessly. All for what? For what? For wanting to be in America? All right, so that's what I'm not happy about, the anti-immigrant sentiment in America. It's absolutely pathetic. It's insecure. It's insecure. You know what it's like? It's like a guy saying, I want to be the only man in my city, right? Because I can't compete with any other man for the affection of women. I need to be the only man. Another man appears in the room, that he's a threat to me. That to me is the anti-immigrant sentiment. That to me is what an anti-immigrant is telling you when he says he hates immigration or wants to end it. So what am I thankful for? I'm thankful for all of the above that I mentioned, and the ability to integrate and to think critically. Coming up today at 7 p.m. UK time, it's the Briefly Objective premiere with Nikos, and it's called Dear Communists, You Need a Stalin. It does really strike me how much a central figure is important for an irrational movement or a dictatorial movement or just an authoritarian movement. How much a central figure matters. You know what I'm saying? Trump is not Hitler and he's not Stalin, but the parallel is this. Since Trump has been sort of out of the picture, like since 2020 or so, or early 2021, when he was scrubbed from social media and he sort of went into exile, it just kind of hasn't been the same for conservatives and Republicans. And then when the midterm elections happened, Republicans tried pulling the same crap that Trump did by, like, as the votes were coming in, saying like, oh, it's being stolen, their Democrats are stealing it. But it just didn't stick. Without Trump, you know, without this brazen and completely unapologetic liar who just liar is a compliment, is flattering him. He doesn't even care what's true and what's not. Just the guy who just gets up there and says, it's being stolen, they're stealing it, we're going to stop this. Without Trump present, the Republicans just didn't have the balls to pull it off. They tried at first. Someone like Michael Knowles and other scumbags, they tried it during Election Day. But once, like, the results started coming in, they just didn't have it in them to really stick with that. And they just basically internalized and accepted the results of the election, which is the results overwhelmingly. The American people, they don't like Trump and they do like abortion rights. Those are two things that voters made very clear. So that's how much a central figure matters to a movement, to a populist movement, to an irrational movement. If a movement is good, if a movement is based on ideas, on, reason, on individualism, then in that case, Ayn Rand could die and the movement only grows without her. I mean, not because she's dead, but it grows because time is passing and good ideas are catching on. Something like Trumpism, and you see this, again, Trump is not Hitler, but you do see that when Hitler killed himself, it like the Nazis weren't really sure where to turn, and without their central figure, they were not, I don't know. An historian could tell us exactly what took place, but it's my understanding that the death of Hitler took a lot of wind out of the, the Nazi movement of its time. So it is really interesting. It is my opinion, and I'll leave you with this note of optimism. For whatever my opinion is worth, this right-wing populism is going to lose steam as time passes, for the reason that once Trump is sort of out of the picture and they're increasingly realizing how unpopular he is, they're not as confident anymore. The alt-right, the new right, the populist, the nationalists, they were super emboldened under Trump because he showed them you don't need any constitutional reverence. You don't need any individualism. You don't need any individual rights. But I think they lost a lot of confidence, or they should lose a lot of confidence when they see when they finally start to see how unpopular Trump is. And on top of that, guys like Josh Hawley, guys like I don't know, all these populists, they are beholden to the voters, and a lot of voters, a lot of Americans, they don't want what he's selling. So I've been very optimistic politically since the midterm elections. So I'm thankful for that. All right. Again, if you missed it, 7 p.m. UK time, it's the Briefly Objective premiere with Nikos called Dear Communists, You Need the Stalin. That was me, a half-hearted impersonation of his accent. Link in the chat. All right. And I'm, of course, thankful for all of you for watching this, thankful for this network, thankful for, everybody who helps out and participates. Yeah, I forgot what I was going to say other than that. Oh, yeah. Sorry, Mark Pellegrino couldn't make it. We all are thankful for him and hope he's having some turkey. I'm thankful to have plans today on Thanksgiving. Thankful to have some good friends in town and an abundance of food. And yeah, I was thinking of walking. It's like a couple miles away where I'm doing Thanksgiving. I was thinking of walking. And then I was thinking to myself, I don't want to be a guy on Thanksgiving walking down a bridge, holding some bags of stuff, wearing a puffy jacket. Like, I don't want to look like a crazy homeless person on Thanksgiving. So I don't know. You can say that's like kind of a second-handed approach to life, or you could say it's a very self-conscious and good, like, branding and self-awareness. Not sure how you would interpret that. But I'm going to drive like a normal person. And I did go for a very long walk this morning. So I got to burn some calories and speed up my metabolism before I go eat lots and lots of food. Everybody have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Wherever you are, I don't care where you are in the world. Happy Thanksgiving, and please act accordingly. And we'll be back tomorrow, me and Nikos Sotirakopoulos, for the Daily Objective. Thank you and goodbye.